Hello and welcome to today's webinar, How Do You Hackathon with GoCode Colorado. Our host for today is Chris Metcalf, Director of Developer Experience here at Socrata. He is going to be joined by Brian Gryth, the Business Intelligence Center Program Manager in Colorado, and also Aaron Templer, Marketing Consultant, who each made GoCode Colorado the first successful statewide hackathon of its kind. Again, thanks everyone for joining us today. We'll go ahead and get started with Chris Metcalf.
All right, thank you, Lita. Brian, Aaron, you guys did something I think truly unique and pretty awesome in Colorado with GoCode. We're all very excited to learn about how you pulled it off and what we all can learn from that. So let's get started and let's learn how you did GoCode.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for Annalita for giving us this opportunity to talk about GoCode. This is Brian Gryth. As Alita said, I'm the program manager for the Business Intelligence Center, which is the program that launched and ran GoCode Colorado. My partner in crime today is Aaron Templer. He's one of the consultants we hired to help us make this possible and really bring what we were trying to do to life. We're going to go over a lot of information today, and I'm going to try to go as quickly as I possibly can so that you guys can answer, or we can answer your questions. But let me begin first with a little bit of a story of why and what we were aiming to try to help. So in Colorado, there's this bakery called Glaze Bomb Cake Shop. They're a specialty pastry shop that makes this particular type of cake that takes 24 hours to cook. It's cooked on one of those spindles, as you can see there, and it's an outstanding pastry. What it is Heather Elcott was an owner, and she saw an opportunity to start this bakery, and she was looking for places to open this shop. And so one of the areas that's kind of a hip and happening place to be in Denver is called a neighborhood called Congress Park. And there's a shopping area right around in that area where she looked to try to open her shop because she was thinking, well, this is a place that would be good for her to know. Things she didn't have regular access to and data she didn't have access to was, what was the foot traffic really actually like in that neighborhood? Were there any construction permits being pulled or anything else that would be adversely affect my business? And in addition, the rent was fairly good, but if you go a couple blocks north, there's Colfax Avenue, which is a very high trafficked area. But is there any enterprise zones or any other places that would make another area that would normally not be where you go more attractive? What happened to Heather Elcott is she opens her shop, and the permit information would have been really helpful because she then would have known that right as she was opening, the two shops right next to her were both doing massive construction, so scaffoldings went up, and it made it look like her shop was not open. This area of Congress Park, even though it is hip and happening, it's kind of it's a destination place, so people go there for a particular reason to shop and to attend a couple of the restaurants that are in that area. And then also on Colfax Avenue, if you go 2 blocks north from where she was at, and then also about a half a mile west of there was an enterprise zone, and so the tax incentives would have actually made the rent, even though the rent was more expensive on Colfax, it would have been just about as the same because of the tax incentives for her to be there rather than in Congress Park. So what she asked us, and what she's asked the community is there a way to get that data out to folks, and is there a way to make it consumable for business owners? And so one of the things we try to do at the Secretary of State's office is, in the state of Colorado, is return value to the people who pay the business fees that keep the lights on in our organizations. And so we were looking at how can we help the Heather Elcotts and the Glaze bakeries of the world be better at what they're doing. So usually when we do this story, we try to tell the story in 3 parts because it basically had 3 overarching parts. I think the thing that the most of the people are going to care about on this phone call are the part 3. So I'm going to kind of blow through part 1 and 2 pretty quickly. But before I get started on that, I think I want to make a couple key points that if I have you write down anything, here's a couple key points from this. Is we did a very large-scale operation. We did a statewide challenge where we did a lot of things throughout the entire state of Colorado. That being said, the GoCode Colorado model that we built and made to this is very scalable. So you could actually go larger than we are doing with this model, as well as go smaller. So it could be industry specific. It could be specific to the mission of your organization. It could be for a city. It could be for a county. It could be for another state. I think the other thing is that when we went into this, sustainability of the apps and the things coming out of this, they had to be sustainable. We had to have a way of making it sustainable for us. And then I think the bigger thing is that if you're even remotely thinking about doing something like this, Aaron, myself, and my team are here to help you. We are available to assist you in doing that. From a takeaway standpoint, I think the 3 key takeaways that I would tell you on this is, and these will become illuminated as I go through this, is planning to pivot, building coalitions, and you don't have to have all the answers. So if we look at the 3-part story, it's the genesis of the idea, our journey to making GoCode a reality, and then the birth of the actual program. So if we look at the actual, how do we get to this idea, a little over a year and a half ago, the Secretary of State's office released this quarterly economic indicators report. And what we found in that is the community really liked this information. They really liked what we produced from them. But the problem was they wanted more information. And so the glazed bakeries and the businesses of the world, they needed more information. They needed more granular data. They needed more information about specific industries. The problem was the Secretary of State's office, as its independent self, does not have all that information. But if we look at labor and employment, we look at revenue, they also have data that can be useful to us. And so the Secretary of State, when he was looking at this, with the success of this indicator report, he came up with this notion of something we call the Business Intelligence Center, which is the program that I run. So that was the notion of the idea. Now, how do we bring that idea to life? How do we bring that idea to the fore and make it a reality? So that was our issue. So the Secretary had this idea, then he came to us and said, hey, can you guys make this a reality? I think one of the first critical steps that we passed was coming to the realization of this idea that Jim Collins talks about, sticking to your knitting. So we had to recognize what we were good at and what we were not good at. We are good at collecting data. We are good at convening communities. We are good at, sometimes we're good at publishing data and getting data out to folks. What we're not good at is necessarily building applications that are commercially viable that the business community wants. We don't necessarily know what the business community wants and what they need, what their true needs are. And so we really needed to identify those things and find where our gaps were in that. And that's where we come to that key takeaway of not having all the answers and making sure that you understand that. We also identified 4 key components to make a platform or to make a project like this successful. When you're looking at it from a data standpoint, the accessibility of the data is really important. So it's not only, getting the data out there is one thing, but is the data actually usable? Is the format good? Where can they find the information? Is there certain standards around it? Can you combine the data and those type of things? So it's the accessibility of the data. The usefulness, this is somewhat related to accessibility, but from a usefulness standard, we're also looking at the usefulness for the end user. So it's not just the developers that are developing the tools, but it's also the business owners that use that, because the business owners aren't necessarily going to be consuming large volumes of data. We also look at awareness. So in a lot of cases, the data is out there or it's already somewhere on a state website, but no one can find it because they don't know where it is. So is there a way to have a Socratic catalog or to have a data catalog or have some point to actually point to where this data is, and then making people aware of where that data catalog is? And then finally, the sustainability piece of looking at when we build out a platform to make information accessible to people, it has to be self-sustaining. It has to be a self-sustaining engine that people are coming back to it. So developers and entrepreneurs are coming to make the data useful. The business owners are coming to actually use the data and those type of things. So what we needed to do was find a way of building a bridge between what we do well and how do we build we create some type of mechanism to get to the community that we need to help us bring this vision alive, as well as building a bridge to get to the business community as well. So one of the first initial things we did is we explored the landscape of the world. And so, we looked at the whole government 2.0 movement and this idea of building platforms and those type of things, the open data movements, an organization that I also helped co-found called Open Colorado. With I have a background in open data. Open Colorado is a platform for primarily municipal data in the state of Colorado. It also promotes getting governments to put their data out there. We looked at Code for America as a model for engaging entrepreneurs and developers and getting people engaged to actually build tools. We looked at the Civic Apps Challenge of rather than us just doing our traditional RFP and say this is what we think is actually the best way to do something, coming up with an idea and a problem set and saying, here's what the problem set is, can the developer community and the civic hacker community come up with apps that would be more inventive than what we could come up with? And so we looked at NYC Big Apps, and then obviously the Open City project from from Chicago, and looking how Open City is combining this kind of world of civic hacking and ideas and generating tools that are making data useful for the average citizens. So we looked at all of these things, and we were trying to figure out what is the best way for us to proceed. And what we landed on was this idea of the Civic Apps Challenge, or the Apps Challenge. How can we, so like I said, the traditional way for us to get apps built for anything in the government is we write a long RFP, we publish it, we hope that a whole bunch of really smart people will apply to it. Typically, we do get smart people applying to do that, but it's usually just large organizations that apply and get these grants. And then we put together requirements, and then we kind of just hope and pray that this actually delivers on a service that we wanted. What we saw the Apps Challenge as is it's a way to engage the community to do, in this case, hands-on economic development. To get, rather than the government prescribing some type of solution on it, we could have the community actually help us in coming to the solution. So once we arrived on that, we obviously had to go and get it funded. We went to the legislature. The Secretary of State's office is cash funded, so we have a cash fund, and we asked this, we had reserve funds set aside for special projects, and we went ahead and we asked the Colorado General Assembly, our legislature, to appropriate funds and authorize us to spend some of those cash funds for that. And we got that in early 2013, we got that appropriation. Then the second part is we went out and we actually built the team. We needed to find those people that knew how to do different things for us. So we needed to find folks like Aaron and the marketing teams to help us build a brand, to build a platform. We needed to go and engage our data community and our data providers to make the data more useful to folks. And we had to also engage outside counsel to help us with IP issues and other technical issues that we had in that. So that is how we got to the program. And so now I'm going to talk about what GoCode is and how we birthed this program. So one of the initial things we did is we took insights from what New York did with NYC Big Apps. And what they did is they looked at problem statements and focusing the developers and focusing people around a specific problem. So what we know is I work in the Business and Licensing Division of the Secretary of State's office. So we register businesses, we do a lot of work with businesses, but the reality is I really don't know what a business owner's problem is. I didn't know that the problems Heather Alcott was facing and those type of things. So the best way for us to be able to engage and actually fill a need is actually go to those communities and ask them, what are your needs? So we did that. We ran this a workshop with the business owners. We got help from our Office of Economic Development and International Trade, which is through the governor's office. They had already done a lot of discovery with the business community, and we identified 18 key problems that the business community had identified for us. and we put those problems in front of the business community, and we said, here's these 5 problems, or can you help us narrow this down to 5 problems? They helped us narrow it down to 5 problems, from business site location, like Heather Elcott, from competitive landscape, to higher education needs, to access to capital, to helping us find strategic partners and business partnerships. Those business owners identified those problems, and then we had to break off into subgroups and actually help us define what those problems are. So at the end of this, these sessions, what we walked away with was an actual problem brief, an actual design brief or something like that, a problem statement that we had that actually defined what the problem is, that you can put that in front of the developers and the entrepreneurs you're going to ask to actually achieve what you're looking at. So once we had that, we had identified what the community needs. So we engaged the community to actually define the problem rather than us prescribe a problem onto them. So the next part was validating our approach. So we had this idea of a civic hackathon, or the civic challenge, not a hackathon, but an actual challenge, a longer challenge to do this. And we had a plan that we presented to the Colorado General Assembly. And so what Aaron and his team did is they took the plan we had, and then they actually went out to the community and did focus grouping and talked to folks about why they participate in these civic hacking events, in these civic, in hackathons, in civic apps challenges. Why do they actually do this? And so we asked that question, why do people participate? So obviously there's the food that people get from the opportunities. There's the fun they can have. This is a picture of a local company called OtterBox, who people may know of. It's up in Fort Collins. They have a 3,000-pound slide in their office, and so this is my director going down the slide at one of our events. It's the opportunity to commune with your colleagues and to have fun in local environments. This is our challenge weekend down in Colorado Springs. There's obviously for the beer and things like that, and the opportunity to have fun with folks. And then there's also this opportunity to walk away and have actually achieved something. This is the prize-winning team that won the competition, and so they got to do that. So then the other thing we wanted to ask is what was important? What's the driver? What's the key things that are going to get people to actually show up to these events? So one of the things that often we think is probably a really big driver to people participating in it is the money. You give away a big prize, people are going to show up. They're going to you think this is great. What we found and what we found in the research is that yes, the money is nice. Yes, it does get people to participate, but that's not the sole and whole reason people participate in this. In fact, another big driver of it is doing important work, and doing that important work is fun for these folks. They're doing something meaningful for a purpose. They're having fun. They're expanding their skill sets. They're interacting with people that they wouldn't normally have an opportunity to interact with. So it's really that community sense that they're actually participating in something. At the end of it, it's the opportunity to celebrate and have fun with your colleagues in your community and to see what you're doing. And then we had a final question of what can we do differently? I think what Aaron had told me and my internal team is we are competing with GoCode Colorado. We are competing in a very crowded environment. There are, startup weekends and hackathons happening all the time, all over the place. And so when we have a community that is being divided and they have ample opportunities to participate in these things, how do we engage them in a different way? And so we looked at how can we be a compelling case to get people to show up to that. And I think this is where one of the opportunities where you kind of have to plan to have changes and that type of thing. So we had a pivot in the middle of what the program was to a new strategy of how to achieve to change the original plan we had told the General Assembly about, which can be a very scary opportunity because you just told the people who authorized you to spend the money that you're going to do X, and now you're somewhat tweaking or changing the plan on you midstream. So the next part is so now we have this idea, we've validated the idea, we have a good concrete plan, we need to actually build something that is compelling for people. So we looked at building the brand platform for GoCode Colorado. So one was coming up with the name, the brand, the GoCode Colorado. But one of the things that we definitely needed to recognize in looking at the brand strategy is the brand had to be for everyone. So it had to be for me, it had to be for my boss, it had to be for the Secretary of State, it had to be for the governor's office, it also had to be for the evangelists we had out there, the people hosting our events. It was, you know, the partners that we found to actually give us, you know, contributions to help us defray costs. It had to be for the entire community. And so when we talk about a brand, yes, I'm talking about a logo, I'm talking about a name, it's talking about the t-shirts that you build and the swag that you have, like the water bottles or the pint glasses, is the signage that you put up at your events and those type of things. Yes, that is a brand, but it also is the experience of this. It's the people that you're participating in. It's this young woman named Hannah Parsons from Colorado Springs, who was by and far one of our rock stars in this event. She hosted the Colorado Springs weekend event. She was definitely in it to win it for the teams for Colorado Springs and drive community. She got a bus and bussed people up to Denver for the final event and for the kickoff event. They brought people in. She raised extra money for us for this. She raised extra money for the team if one of the Colorado Springs teams won in the competition. It was the developers from Rally Software who worked up in Boulder and hosted our event, and they got to have fun and experience what we were working on. It's Aaron Rayner from Durango, who his team came in second place in this, and them being able to do really important and fun work and have a good experience and have the opportunity, as he would say, to have a bunch of geeks from Durango actually have an impact on the community, because not often do we get down to the southwest corner of the state to help the community. So they got to be interactive and have fun in this opportunity. To one of our teams from the Boulder teams, they call themselves Coco Lab, who built the team. These young guys that we affectionately called our boy band. They got to have fun and be experienced and do things that they wouldn't normally have done. It's to our judges that we had that presented and helped us with doing these, as well as the secretary, the guy in the tie in there, and all those folks like that. To Patrick Ryan, a executive at Google, who got to do a presentation for us and telling us a story that he had been doing a lot of international traveling, and during that international travel he had missed his 7-year-old's birthday. And he asked us, you know, could you guys all shout out happy birthday to her, because I told her I'd capture this for her, and one of my team yelling out, well, can we actually sing her happy birthday, and being able to do that and having 200 perfect strangers sing your daughter happy birthday. To the youngest member of our challenge, Krishna, who is a 14-year-old student from Arapahoe County, who participated and was who presented at Denver and was on the presenting team and one of the winning teams on the night of the challenge. And then again, Vocek and Sean, the two winners from Fort Collins, who Vocek, who is a senior developer at Intel, and him being able to, you know, every day he'd go to work and he'd think about, oh, I get to go and work on a cool project at the end of the night for GoCode and be able to have an impact on it. So the brand was for all of those people and for all of that experience. And so that's what we had to build for. So I've gone a long time with talking about this idea of about building this brand platform and what we're doing, but there is a key component to this, and obviously it is the data. You cannot have a Civic Apps Challenge, you cannot have these type of events without data. The data is the infrastructure, the thing that we're building off on top of this. It's something that I often will say in presentations like this, is that data is the infrastructure, and this public data is the infrastructure for the digital world. This is what we were building on top of. So our data strategy was, again, we got a contractor to help us with the data and to work with us. We also had to go out and find we had to go find partners beyond the state, to find state agencies that would help us, to find regional governments, the Regional Council of Governments, a planning organization, a healthcare organization that collects payer data, again, Open Colorado that collects municipal data, Colorado Data Engine, which is an API engine that is primarily used by data journalists, the Department of Local Affairs for their statistics data and their demographics data, and the higher education organization, as well as a few other organizations. But one of our key partners was the Colorado Information Marketplace. And the Colorado Information Marketplace is the state of Colorado's data catalog, which is it is a Socrata catalog. It's built there, and it's at data.colorado.gov. And this is the repository we were going to use to point people to create the apps that we were asking them to make through GoCode Colorado. And so Diana Anderson, the Chief Data Officer for the state of Colorado, and her team were extremely helpful in helping us get that information up and so working with us in making this a reality. So without the Colorado Information Marketplace and that catalog, this would not have been possible. The other thing that we had is we had leadership support. So initially we had Secretary of State Scott Kessler, who came up with the notion of this project and also gave us the support and the authorization to go forward with it. Governor Hickenlooper, and this is one of the things you can get Democrats and Republicans to work together, because Scott Kessler is a very conservative Republican, and John Hickenlooper is a very centrist Democrat, but they were able to find common ground and see that this was a bipartisan effort for us, and so that we could find support. And the governor, very early on in his State of the State in 2013, actually recognized this project as a really important thing. Early on, as we were kicking off the project, Kristen Russell, the former CIO of the state of Colorado, sent a letter to all the executive agencies and said, you need to participate, you need to publish your data, the data in Colorado Information Marketplace, and you need to participate in GoCode Colorado. And that actually resulted in the Department of Local Affairs coming to the table and talking to us. And again, the Chief Data Officer, Diana Anderson, was a key contributor to this project, and without her support and her leadership, we would not have been able to get where we were at. So the leadership support is extremely important. So what actually happened and what came about from this is we were able to publish an additional 38 data sets to the Colorado Information Marketplace, from business registry data to charitable solicitations data to higher education applications and degrees granted, to state demography information, so forecasts and historical births and deaths in the state. We also, from that data, the community created another 19 data objects on the data catalog, so they created filters of the data as well as charts and other types of information from that. In the Secretary of State's office, we actually do sell the business registry data that we have. So we sell the data. If you wanted to buy all the entity data, so all the companies that form in the state of Colorado, you can buy that from us. It's $1,000 a month. What the revenue we take in from that is about $90,000 a year from that. But really, the reality is yes, that's a revenue loss for us, but it's a $90,000 savings to our customers. So the people who come in and buy that data, they now have $90,000 that they can deploy to improving their businesses rather than just buy data from the Secretary of State's office. And I think most importantly, we illustrated the value of public data through what we were doing in this. Okay, so now we'll get into the meat and what we actually did. So the event series we had, GoCode Colorado really, if you get down to it, is an event series that we did. And so it started off with a kickoff event in mid-March in Denver. And this is where we took the opportunity to take those 5 problem sets and present them to folks and say, these are the problems they have. But rather than us stand up there and talk about what those problems are, we had Heather Alcott come and tell her story. So to talk about what was her challenge, so that we actually put a face with the challenge, and we gave them, we breathed life into these things and made them more concrete to people and made them more actionable. So from that, we then had this statewide challenge weekend. And essentially what the challenge weekend was a hackathon or a startup weekend. People came in on Friday night. We presented the 5 problems. We told them what our aim was by the end of it. We told them, form teams, go forth and conquer. And then they had until right around 5 o'clock on Sunday to build their apps and to build their presentations to us, to pitch their ideas to us. The big differentiator on this is we didn't do one event, we didn't do one hackathon, we did 5. We did 5 different hackathons throughout the state of Colorado. So we did one in Fort Collins, one in Boulder, one in Denver, one in Colorado Springs, and one in Durango. And as you can see in the map, the geographic distribution of that is fairly large. Yes, there's a lot on the eastern slope of Colorado, but we did also go way down to the Four Corners area for Durango. And what happened from that is we then told all the participants is we're going to take the top 2 ideas from each of these 2 communities, and those top 2 ideas, or those 10 teams, are going to advance into a finalist pool where they will compete for the award money we have at the end of it. And what they were doing in that finalist is that they were going to actually build the app that they pitched to us and have a fully functional app by the end of the challenge series. But in order to support the teams, we had this mentor workshop and check-in. So the teams, 2 weeks after the challenge weekend, they came to Denver to have an opportunity to meet with mentors, to meet with folks that would be able to help their teams advance, that would help them do the business planning that we were asking them to do, to look at their problem sets, to look at how they're doing their market strategy, how they're being their communications, how would they chase funding, how would they how would they address legal issues and those type of things. So we had a bunch of mentors come and participate in that, and we gave them the opportunity. We gave each of the team members a small stipend to defray the cost to travel. And then the final part of the opportunity was the judging in the final. 5 days before the final, which was on May 9th, on May 4th, the teams had to turn in their code. And we did a code review on it, and we tested their apps to make sure they worked. They also had to turn in an application that the 5 judges that we had looked at and rated on the score. But on the final night, what we did is we had a celebration for what we had done to celebrate the efforts and celebrate the program, but we also had all of the teams pitch that night. So we had, it ended up being only 9 teams because one of the teams had to drop out. But the 9 teams then presented their ideas to the judging panel and showed that, and to the community, the 250 people that were there at that night, and they presented those things. And then the 3 teams we picked the top 3 teams from that, and those top 3 teams were awarded $25,000, $15,000, and $10,000 from that. And the key differentiator between most hackathons and most challenges like this is that was not prize money. That was not, you can now go throw a party and have fun with your friends, you got it, you've lined your pockets with that. It was an actual contract with the state of Colorado. They receive monies in exchange for maintaining and providing analytics around their data and around their applications. But to kind of give you an idea of what it looked like, here is Heather Alcott at the final, or at the kickoff event, presenting her problem set and talking about it. We have Rayhan Hassan, our attorney, and Brandon West from SendGrid, are 2 of our partners in working at this at the Boulder event. We have the secretary interacting with the folks down in Colorado Springs and talking to the teams on Saturday. We have us doing a presentation on how to present and how to pitch on that through a Google Hangout, and the teams working hard and diligently on their projects. We have the teams down in Durango working on what they're doing. We had one of the developers who couldn't find a babysitter, so he brought his daughter to work and participate in the weekend. We had the teams working through their ideas and working on what they were doing and doing those things. We had Andrea, she was a judge, but then also became a mentor of us, working with one of the teams and working through their idea. We have the teams working through their idea, whiteboarding what they're doing and going over their ideas. We have, again, the teams doing that. Our lawyer talking to people and discussing these things. And then to the final night where we had actual bomb cakes. Heather Elcott donated bomb cakes for the entire audience, and we had a celebration from that. And the event was definitely a broad spectrum of folks, so people could show up in their jackets and their ties, or they could show up in their T-shirts and participate, and everyone was welcome in the community. To the teams pitching their ideas and participating, again, one of our other teams, Local Sage, the third place team from Colorado Springs, talking through their ideas. To the audience that we had and the participation we had at the Denver Art Museum on that weekend. But what also made it possible for us to do this was the support of our community. Yes, these partners did provide money. They provided financial support, but they also provided support in the in-kind donations, from Google providing access to the Google Apps platform, to providing support and helping us through different opportunities, through SendGrid providing API access and also sending dev evangelists to every single location throughout the state and participating. Tangent 7, who created a video that is accessible on our website, and I highly recommend you see that. It's a 3-minute video of basically telling you what I'm telling you right now. Through Esri providing their opportunities to use their data and their tools. To Rally Software and these other providers who provided space, who provided financial support, to these other partners who provided, again, support and those type of things, from Socrata, who provided one of their teams, their technical team, to help us with these type of things, to Bailey accounting firm that just wanted to support and be part of this, to the Chamber of Commerce in Durango, to Mercury Payment Systems, and a whole plethora of other partners that helped us. But without these partners, we would not have been as successful to do that. And so finally, I think, as I said, the takeaways are, plan to pivot. As I said earlier, we had a plan. We thought we knew what we wanted to achieve, but then we found out is if we went down that road, it wouldn't have worked. And so we needed to pivot, and we needed to take on opportunities and build for change and plan to do that. Building coalitions, like I said, the partners we had were critical to our success in making this happen. They provided additional data. They provided additional resources. They provided mentoring, support, and other things. And then also that you don't have all the answers, and that there are support systems out there. So as you're planning this event and you're doing these type of things, the last message I'd have is you can do it as well. And you have support out there, and you have the opportunity to do that. And I think, Aaron and I and my team are more than happy to provide that support throughout the project. And that is the presentation, and now I'll ask Aaron if he has anything to add.
Why don't we just open up, Brian? I'd like to hear what folks are thinking, and would be happy to chime in, answering the participants' specific questions. Why don't we just open up, Brian? I'd like to hear what folks are thinking, and would be happy to chime in, answering the participants' specific questions. Okay.
Well, Chris, I'll turn it back to you for questions.
Dre, who's in ACM at American University, is planning a hackathon themed on information security next spring. They're organizing it, but feeling a bit intimidated as an undergraduate college student in organizing it. Do you have any advice for newbies doing their first hackathon about how they can run it better?
Brian, I can chime in. I would, having talked with a bunch of people as a part of the market research to see how we could, as Brian mentioned, differentiate GoCode and make sure that we were adding value, and then really trying to crack the nut of sustainability. I think there's kind of a dirty secret in some hackathon communities that says really nothing comes out of them of sustaining value, with rare exceptions. I would say, first of all, what our research showed is that people want to have fun at these things first and foremost. Brian touched on this a little bit. The award is almost beyond tertiary for most developers to participate in hackathons. They sort of go into it knowing that their odds aren't good of winning. And so don't make it about the award, make it about the fun. People are giving up a weekend, and they want it to be fun. The second thing I would recommend is to get a really high quality group of judges and panelists and mentors. Another thing that ranked really high for people participating in hackathons was the ability to put their work in front of other people who they hold in high regard. It's a good opportunity for exposure for them. And then the third reason people participate in hackathons is just to work on something different as a developer that they don't work on day to day, just to kind of break out of their day-to-day routine. So, you know, make it as open as you possibly can in terms of the kinds of code and the kinds of technologies that are going to be used, so you can attract people of different kinds. And then the fourth thing would have to be make it meaningful. So it's fun, yes, but I want to make sure that I'm spending my time, my discretionary time, towards something that's important to the world, something that's bigger than I am. People and developers feel very taken advantage of often when a for-profit company runs a hackathon. They feel like it's free R&D, really turns them off, especially if they've been hoodwinked into thinking that it was for something else. So the fourth thing would be kind of keep that mission first and foremost.
The other thing that I would add is if you can actually, you know, focus the folks around a problem. If you're looking at a specific problem, is there a way to define that problem better? I know from other folks that I've talked to in kind of the developer world, specifically a couple of people who run coding schools, they really like that part of GoCode, is that we weren't just kind of throwing the doors open and say, do something around sustainability or do something around this. We're actually giving people concrete problems to address and tackle. Because the reality is the people who show up to hackathons, by and large, are going to be software developers who are engineers. And engineers like to solve problems. They don't necessarily want to come up with what the problem is, but they want to solve problems. And so I think that's what you're looking at. And I think you just be aware of what your scope is, because the reality is it's really hard to come out with something that's sustainable from a hackathon because it's only a weekend. It's not going to have that, and people have to have a drive to make it something sustainable. That's why we really didn't do a hackathon. Yes, we ran a hackathon in the middle of the challenge, but we were really focused on something much more than that. So I think, you know, just go in with this sense of what you want to achieve. Look to your community. Are there other people around that have run hackathons in the past? I'm assuming if it's American University or in the DC area, unless it's a different American. Look to the brigade in DC. Look to the Code for America brigade to help you with that. And there's a number of other folks that can probably help you in achieving and making it a success. The point on the hackathon in the middle of the apps challenge, one of the key components of that is that we wanted to identify the best problem, the best solutions as fast as possible, and the best way to do that was through the hackathon. So the teams worked on that, and we could identify the best, those top 10 teams very quickly, and the investment for the entire community was only that weekend. And then the rest of the teams would have to invest more time over the 6 weeks so it's meeting a need for the community, because one of the things we heard through Aaron's research was, I don't want to give up 8 weeks of my life to this event. I don't know if I want to do that and things, and we don't want to have this huge rate of attrition in that. We want to identify those things, make people, have them have a fun weekend, but then also expand it into actually having a better result at the end of that.
I love that model of blending a app contest with hackathons. I think it's a great way of getting all the benefits of a long-running app contest, but also the kind of socialization and networking and fun of a hackathon. Jess says that you mentioned that money is not a big motivator, and not as big of a motivator as you might think, and that feeling like you're making a difference is important. Can you elaborate on what people are interested in terms of doing something, quote unquote, meaningful?
Sure. It's a marketing kind of 101 principle that we all, if there's any sort of truth in sales and marketing, it's that we all need to be attached to something that's larger and bigger than we are, and bigger and larger than the transaction. especially when you're talking about encouraging people to participate discretionarily over a weekend, give their time for free. With, they're smart people. They can look around and see how many people are participating and know that and look at their odds at winning money. So it really is about, if I'm going to give up some time, it better be for something important for our community. And that was actually a challenge for us, because at the end of the day, our challenge is a business-to-business app challenge. So talk about dry and not necessarily something that is going to entice people to give up some time from a philanthropy point of view. That's a difficult sell. So we really focused on how this is hands-on economic development for people. You can take part in building a better economy in Colorado by participating in this challenge, and that's how we focused on it. Really, it was less about the money and more about that.
That's awesome. So I think we're getting near the end of our time here, so it's time to wrap up. I want to thank you all for doing such a great presentation and running such an awesome event. For those who didn't get your question answered, if we didn't get to you in the course of the webinar, we will try and answer your question in a future blog post. So watch our blog and watch for our future. There's more webinars in this series as well, so we might be able to get to it there too. All right, thanks guys, and thank you everybody who came and attended to learn with us.